Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the HP Reverb G2. This is an updated version of the HP Reverb VR headset, and this is an unboxing and review video to talk to you about what this headset's like to use, how it compares with other ones I've tried, and the number of different highlights about it. Now, if you don't know already, the HP Reverb G2 was made in collaboration with Microsoft and Valve, which is interesting for a number of reasons, not least of which is it's designed to work with both Windows Mixed Reality and SteamVR out of the box, which is interesting because it opens up a world of possibilities in terms of both productivity, usability, and gaming goodness. So it basically means you can play loads of different games and you can access things in a lot of simple ways, and it's really fun to use and interesting in that way. And I'll talk to you about that a bit more later on as we go on, and how Windows Mixed Reality and SteamVR works. But as you'll see, it's also an interesting design which kind of looks quite similar to the Oculus Rift S, and yet the HP Reverb G2 is one of the best VR headsets that you can get on the market in terms of specifications. It has the highest resolution screen available with two 2.89 inch LCD displays showing 2160 by 2160 pixels per eye, which is higher than the Oculus Rift S, the Valve Index, the HTC Vive Cosmos, and even the older HTC Vive Pro, which was pitched quite high. It also has a 90 Hz refresh rate and 4 inside-out tracking cameras. It uses these chunky monkey Windows Mixed Reality style controllers, which are a bit of a pain, and I'll talk to you about why later on, but are good for tracking purposes. And they have that kind of classic Windows Mixed Reality design to them, with those lights around the top ring for tracking purposes. It also comes with a number of things in the box that allow you to connect it to your PC or laptop. Now, for reference, this thing requires a pretty basic minimum specification. I'll leave all the details on that in the description, but it does require a USB-C connection and a DisplayPort connection. But in the box, they do supply a USB-C to USB-A adapter and a DisplayPort to DisplayPort mini adapter as well. But note, there is no adapter for DisplayPort to HDMI. So you do need to make sure you have a DisplayPort connection on your PC in order to make the most of this headset. You also need to make sure you've got super fast USB connections if you're going to USB-A as well. And again, I'll note all the specifications and requirements in the description, but you need DisplayPort 1.3 and USB 3.0 preferably. You also need to make sure you have the latest version of Windows 10 in order to make sure you're ticking all the boxes. But otherwise, it's a fairly standard setup. Now, elements of this VR headset kind of ring to the original HTC Vive in the way it sets up and connects to your PC. There's this little control box that you can see here, which essentially splits the proprietary cable into DisplayPort and USB-C connections, but that box needs power from the power adapter that's included in the box. And then obviously this end is plugged into your PC, into the DisplayPort and USB-C connections. Really nice to only have a couple of connections like that, makes things a lot easier, but you do need a power plug as well. You then have a 6-meter cable that connects to the headset, and you can see the other end of the cable here, and that plugs in really easily, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And that basically plugs into the headset with ease, and then the control box is powered. That basically allows you to connect and set everything up. The setup process for this is really easy, but you'll see the similarities if you know anything about the HTC Vive and the Vive Cosmos and those other devices. They basically have a control box that plugs into power into your PC in a similar sort of way. So there's sort of elements of that that are included in this headset. And obviously you then have the controllers. These are AA battery powered. They can't be plugged in and charged. You need to make sure you have batteries that will support them. But they are quite large and they fit nicely in the hand. They're relatively easy to use. There are some niggles with them though. For example, I found that some games don't immediately recognize what they are and struggle to play them with the default setup. So for example, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners just plain didn't recognize these controllers, and the buttons for it didn't work. What I did find was that if you opened up the Steam overlay, you could go into that and you could choose some custom settings. You can either set your own or you can download ones that other people have uploaded to the community. I think it's worth bearing in mind. Otherwise, you'll see multiple buttons. The usual kind of setup, you've got a trigger button, side grips, a little tiny joystick, and then buttons on either side. Here you can see it alongside an Oculus controller, and you can see the size difference. Quite large, the controllers for the Reverb G2 by comparison. So they're a bit more, not necessarily weighty, but certainly a bit chunkier in the hand, and it's not necessarily a problem either, but they are quite big. Especially those rings around the top, you can really see how much that stands out. What that does mean is that the tracking on them has been pretty good. I've not had any issues with tracking hand movement while I've been playing VR. It tracks it really well and knows where your hands are, what direction they're facing, and all that really easily as well. The hatch comes off on the side, and obviously you can put your AA batteries in there. The setup for these is also really easy. They're automatically pre-paired with the headset, and you literally just turn them on when you're running through the Windows Mixed Reality setup, and they're immediately paired. I didn't have any problems with it. I also had 2 of these headsets, which is another gripe in itself. So before I get further into the review, I want to talk to you about the first one. So a few months ago, actually quite a while ago, I got the original headset sent to me for testing purposes, and I tried it out and I had no end of problems with it, significant issues, and I think it's worth covering these. But I will say that the new one isn't an issue in the same way, but I think it's worth knowing. Basically, there was some serious issues with the tracking and the way the screen worked. The display was jagged and disconnected and didn't work properly and made me feel nauseous and horrible and all sorts. One lens would show a picture at one angle, another one would show it at a completely different angle. There was screen shake, there was all sorts of oddities. I tried it in multiple different gaming machines as well, because I happened to have 2 PCs that I'd built and a gaming laptop. Tested on all of them, still had the same issue. And that was a hardware problem. So if you do have similar issues, it might be worth getting in touch with HP and talking to them about it. But this one that I have now isn't a problem at all. Now, underneath, you'll see there's an IPD slider. This is another point of note, is that the IPD goes between 60 and 68. So sliding that slider, you can adjust the lenses. You'll see them move in and out, and that's where you find the sweet spot where you have the vision correct. But it is only between 60 and 68. It's hardware IPD rather than software like on the Oculus Rift, but it does mean that you have to adjust in small increments that way, and it might not be perfect. Other design highlights to it is you have these off-ear speakers that are designed by Valve. Both the lenses and the speakers are designed by Valve, and they're said to be fantastic in terms of their setup. I actually did have some problems with these speakers, where one of them occasionally doesn't work, which is a bit odd, a bit of an oddity. But otherwise, the lenses are fantastic. As I said, really good visuals on them. Obviously, premium lenses designed by Valve are said to be industry leading, and in my experience is that they are fantastic quality. 2160 pixels by 2160 per eye, so the maximum pixel count on it is ridiculous. You're getting 4320 by 2160 as the full res, which is insane. 114 degree field of view, 90 Hz refresh rate, and these are Fresnel aspherical lenses. And are also mura free, as I mentioned earlier on, and that's a point that they make. Dual LCD screens with a 2.89 inch diagonal panel. What that means, all of that means in practice, is that you have a very clear picture, really impressive, with really good color representation. I do feel like the edges of the lenses you can see quite a lot when you're inside the headset, and that can be a nag. But as you can see, you do have a very interesting, comfortable faceplate and adjustment system. There's a nice little rubber thing for your nose, and that faceplate's held in place with magnets as well, so it's really easy to take off. It also has like a memory foam cushioning on it, and it's very soft on the face, and it wasn't something I noticed immediately. But after I've been wearing it for a while, I felt that it was actually probably one of the more comfortable VR headsets that I've tried. It sits nicely on the face, and yes, obviously, any VR headset is weighty and potentially uncomfortable after a long gaming session. But this one sits so it doesn't add a huge amount of pressure to the front of your face, and it results in quite a comfortable fit. and they don't get too hot. And that's the bonus of having those off-ear speakers as well, is that you don't have that problem. Another thing is the mics on these are fantastic, and I'll show you the mics later on when I captured some gaming footage and some audio from that, and you can hear me talking and you'll get an idea of what that quality is like. Now, these lenses are also really good in other ways. Obviously, with such modern VR lenses, the pixel count's been improved, the density's stronger, and so the screen door effect and other problems are gone, and the quality is just fantastic. I played Half-Life Alyx, Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, Super Hot VR, other games like The Walking Dead, as I said, and the graphics were really impressive. Both close-up things that you're looking at and a long way away, just the surrounding world, just really good quality and fantastic in the visual department. Certainly a pleaser. Obviously, with such a high pixel count, you do really need a powerful PC in order to get the most out of it, but the minimum specifications for this are actually really low. As I said, I'll leave those in the description, but basically you can run this on a fairly mid-range PC and still get good performance. But I've been running it on a bit of a beast, cranked everything up, turned it up maximum, and really got some fantastic visuals out of it. Now, I was saying earlier on that it's comparable to the Oculus Rift S, and you can see some of the design aesthetics to it that look quite similar. Obviously, you have those speakers sitting on the side. You also have that sort of black styling. It has inside-out tracking cameras, so unlike something like the HTC Vive, where you had to take external base stations in order to track it, this again has that sort of Oculus Rift styling to it, where now there's cameras on the side and front. So it has 2 on the side and 2 on the front that are designed to track your movement in the world. So it has 6 degrees of freedom movement tracking, which means it tracks your movement back and forth, up and down, side to side, and all that, as well as the controllers as well, all without any external base station. So setting it up is really easy. Just plug it into your machine, whether it's laptop or gaming PC, and off you go. You don't have to worry about getting a good space. One nag that I have had, however, is that it is quite retro in the way you set it up. So you go through the setup process with Windows Mixed Reality or with Steam, and you have to hold the headset and then use that to track around your room to trace out the gaming area, and that's really retro in times where Oculus, for example, has it so you can basically paint it when you've got the headset on. You can use a controller to paint, just point around the room where the edges are and just paint it in VR and make that space out for you. That's a lot more user-friendly. The Reverb G2 has this kind of retro style where you're carrying the headset around the room with you, mapping out the room that way, which is really old school. It also has the old school setup in terms of the Velcro strap, so tightening and loosening the headset requires movement with 3 straps on the side and the top in order to adjust the size of it and get it to fit on your head, which is a bit of a pain and kind of old school. This is going to be a personal preference thing. I prefer the design of other headsets where you have an adjustment wheel at the back. You just pop the headset on, you roll the wheel in one direction or the other, and it tightens and loosens it. Other people prefer Velcro. I've seen that in some of the comments on my past videos, so if you prefer Velcro, then this is one for you. Obviously, you can see there's a movement in the headset there as well, which means that when you've got it on, you can flip the visor up at the front, which I do really like. I really like having that ability because it means that if you need to see where you are and reorientate yourself in the world when you're playing in VR, let's say you're bumping into something and you're not sure what it is, you want to take the headset off just to get an idea of where you are, then you can easily do that, and it's really nice to be able to do that. And also just talking to people, if someone comes in the room and wants to talk to you, whether it's a child, a wife, or a friend, or whatever, you can do that with these too, so that's really nice. Other design highlights are definitely these speakers, having those there to be able to get them off your ears to keep you cool, because when you're playing in VR, you tend to get really hot. I do anyway, which can result in the screen steaming up and making it difficult to see, which can be a nag. So this design keeps your ears cool and keeps you cool by having those speakers putting sound into your ear, and they are spatial speakers, so they give you a good spatial surround sound experience, but also without covering the ear entirely. It also means that you can hear the world around you to some degree, so you're not unaware of what's happening. So if someone comes into the room, you don't accidentally punch them because you weren't aware they weren't in there, but you still keep cool. It also means less wires. So as you can see, with the installation of the standard cable in there, you basically take that faceplate off and install the cable inside, And it's just a single cable for all of those things. So for the microphone, the audio, and for the visuals, just one cable connects into the front. And it clips on at the rear here to keep things out of the way. But what this means is no headset cables, no microphone cable, no excess massive cables to just get in the way, which is great. Now I really wish the VR was moving into a more wireless world. I can't sing the praises enough of wireless VR. If you've played with the Quest 2, or if you've used like HTC Vive with a wireless adapter, it's a dream. Having VR cables is a nightmare because you always get tangled up in them and it's uncomfortable and awkward, and I find them wrapped around my legs and all sorts. There are solutions like getting them mounted above the ceiling and whatever else hanging from the ceiling, but it's still a pain. But unfortunately, wired is still the best experience for the best visuals, the lowest latency, and the best performance. And so they've done a good job of keeping that cable light and long. As I said, it's 6 meters. It's designed to be lightweight and not to be too much of a problem, and I really didn't find it was a major issue. The headset itself is also designed to be lightweight, so it doesn't nag at you, and I actually have found, as I said, this is one of the more comfortable headsets that I've tried. You'll notice a large comfortable faceplate at the front, but the rear also has that comfortable padding on it too. And just generally, I haven't found, been playing for several hours at a time, that it wasn't putting loads and loads of pressure on my face, and I didn't find it really uncomfortable. I also didn't find that I was steaming up that much. I usually find I get really hot with VR and I steam up, and I'm a glasses wearer, spectacles under there as well, and there is room for spectacles if you're wondering. They do fit under there, and I don't find that I'm steaming up constantly with them, which is absolutely joyful. I mean, it is a cold time of year at the moment, but still the performance has been better in that area. So all in all, so far, what you're hearing is a pretty positive review of a good headset. I did initially have those problems with the hardware problems, where basically it wasn't tracking the controllers properly, and there was a jarring, nauseating experience when I launched games, and it kind of worked a little bit. Then I got a new one. There was obviously something wrong with the first one initially. The new one has been fine. And the experience with having Windows Mixed Reality and Steam is fantastic, actually. I used Windows Mixed Reality headsets a few years ago, and they were okay back then. It wasn't amazing, but the experience has come a bit of a way. The Windows Mixed Reality thing is kind of still same as what it always was, but what it means is it's a lot more seamless now. And basically there's a button on the controller where you can bring up the interface and you can easily do things, and there's a few things that you can do that I really like, but simple little things that make quite a difference. So the headset is designed now essentially where you have a button on the headset that you can press. You press a Windows key and it brings up a little mini menu. In there are a number of different highlights to it. You can click to record footage of what you're doing, so that's how I managed to capture this footage, for example. You can click to do other things like take screenshots. You can also access obviously Steam menus from within the Steam settings and change bindings on the controllers. That's something you can see here, and that's one of the points that I made earlier on, so just talk about that briefly for a minute. The bindings on the controllers change from game to game, because obviously this is a Windows Mixed Reality headset, and there are games available on Steam that work with Windows Mixed Reality headsets, Oculus Rift and Vive, and they're generally categorized like that. So sometimes you'll find some games that you go to play on the Reverb don't immediately recognize what headset you're working with, or they struggle with the controller setup, and so it's not immediately intuitive. But what you can do is you can open up the menu settings and you can adjust the controller settings manually. You can customize the settings for each of the keybinds yourself, or you can download settings that other people have already created, whether that's developers or other people in the game. And that's one of the things I found with Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. What you're seeing here is Half-Life Alyx, where I was tweaking them a bit. But in Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, when I first loaded the game up, I literally couldn't do anything until I went into the Steam customization options and I downloaded someone else's controller settings specifically for the Reverb G2's controllers, and then it worked seamlessly. And so it's worth bearing that sort of thing in mind. But things like the trackpads, for example, don't exist on these controllers. You have joysticks instead, but there are simulated trackpads through some of the buttons. So the buttons on the controller, so A and X, I believe, are the simulated buttons on the controllers that you can use that basically represent trackpads that allow the differences between those And so there's some slight differences between the setup of them, but basically what I'm saying is you can customize them so it does work eventually, and there are ways to do it. Now with the Windows Mixed Reality interface, you can bring that up and you can do numerous things. There's, for example, a torch setting that you can click on, which essentially turns your controller into a little torch that you can use the cameras for, the tracking cameras, as like pass-through cameras to see into your real world, which is pretty interesting. And you can see around. It's not as good as the pass-through on the Oculus Rift, which allow you to easily see the whole world around you, but it is still effective and works well in that way. Another highlight that I like is that you can click to view your desktop. So from within the Windows Mixed Reality menu, you can click to see the desktop. And from there, you basically get a desktop view of your PC and you can interact with things on it. And what that means is that you don't have to take your headset off to do a lot of stuff. There's no taking your headset off, going over to your PC, clicking buttons or doing other things. Also, because it's Windows integrated, so it means you can do things like reply to Skype messages, browse the web, open a browser, watch Netflix or YouTube on a big screen. There's loads of other stuff in there too. I'm not going to go into a great deal of depth or show off footage from the Windows Mixed Reality side of things, because that's a whole different ball game, and that's not specifically for this headset, but it is worth looking at if you're interested in it. Go and find a review of Windows Mixed Reality and how that works, because the result of that experience is a really seamless and interesting UI that makes it a lot easier. But one thing that they've improved upon now is that it's a lot easier to launch SteamVR from Windows Mixed Reality. And so the conclusion is a very good virtual reality headset with incredible pixel density and a really nice display, a comfortable fit that's really fun to use, and a few minor niggles. As I said, I had problems with one of the speakers on mine, and initially one of the hardware devices was a bit of a problem. But since I had an upgrade, I've not had any issues. The visuals have been great, the sound's been great, the tracking's been fantastic. It's really comfortable to use. There are issues with controllers and the setup in some games, but it's very sort of hit and miss, and it isn't necessarily a problem. I play loads of different VR games with this headset and I've not had major dramas. The design is kind of old-fashioned in some ways, but it's certainly modern in others, and considering it works well with both SteamVR and Windows Mixed Reality, means you get a fantastic all-round experience. Now I'm going to leave you with a sample bit of footage captured while I was playing Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, where I'm also talking, so using the microphone from the headset so you can get an idea of the capture quality of that microphone too, and also just see a bit of that in action. Hope you found this video useful. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. Thanks for watching.
Wow, last bullet. That's quality. Don't point that thing at me.
Das amerikanische Gewürm ist in der Bibliothek!
That was awesome.
This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Hope you found it useful, interesting, hilarious, or all of the above. Be sure to check out the description for other information you might find interesting, and subscribe and watch these other videos as well that I think might be useful to you, and have a great life.